Good morning and a warm welcome to Singapore International Water Week 2021. This year, we take on a fully virtual format as SIWW2021 online. Although this means we can't be gathered together physically, the objectives of SIWW remain the same. That is, to share best practices, co-create innovative solutions, and generate new business opportunities. These are all the more important today due to external stresses such as climate change and the pandemic that the water sector is facing. At SIWW 2021, as an event focused on innovation and solutions, we have put together a comprehensive lineup of utility and industry-focused content covering the entire urban water cycle. These include the Water Convention with over 300 technical papers, the Water Expo with over 120 international exhibitors and 6 participating pavilions, 30 technology and product showcases presenting the latest solution offerings, 19 thematic webinars on key and emerging topics of interest, and 25 innovation to practice sessions on the innovation journey of utilities. I wish to thank our sponsors, partners, and co-organizers for working with us in developing the program. These sessions will be delivered right here on this very platform over the next 10 days. We hope you will find them useful in keeping you abreast of the latest trends and best practices. This morning, we will be kicking off SIWW 2021 with Spotlight. Held over 3 sessions over the course of the day, global leaders will be sharing their perspectives on how we can build a sustainable water future through innovation and collaboration. To officially open SIWW 2021 online, it gives me great pleasure to welcome the Singapore Minister for Sustainability and the Environment, Ms. Grace Fu, for her opening address. Minister, please.
Distinguished leaders, delegates, and guests from around the world, a very good morning to you all, and a warm welcome from Singapore. Thank you for attending the Singapore International Water Week 2021. While we're unable to meet in person, I'm glad that we can come together through this virtual event to learn from one another and exchange ideas. The sharing by leaders in the public and private sectors, as well as academia, can foster innovation and collaboration for a more sustainable future in the water sector. Water security is a long-standing issue. More than ever, we need to take a global approach to develop new solutions to our water problems. According to a World Economic Forum study, half the world's largest cities experience water scarcity, and the gap between global water supply and demand is increasing. With population growth and climate change, water stresses will only continue to rise. Besides domestic use, water is critical to industries ranging from the semiconductor plants in Taiwan to the farmers in California. Climate change and environmental degradation have exacerbated the challenges we face. We're experiencing more extreme weather conditions and contamination of water sources. The COVID-19 pandemic has made access to clean water an even more pressing concern. Access to clean water exacerbates inequality when communities that lack sanitation and clean water suffer more from the pandemic than those who have. The UN Sustainable Development Goal 6, or SDG 6, is to ensure access to water and sanitation for all. To achieve this goal, we must find new and innovative ways to increase the resilience of the world's water resources and manage water demand by encouraging households and industries to conserve water. We must engage in the open exchange of knowledge and innovative solutions to manage global water resources in a sustainable manner. Only by working together can we ensure water security for all. Singapore is playing our part to advance the sustainability agenda. This year, we launched the Singapore Green Plan 2030, a roadmap to guide Singapore's sustainable future and achieve our aspirations of net zero emissions as soon as it is viable. The Singapore Green Plan comprises plans and concrete targets for many sectors. For water, we aim to enhance our water security while reducing our energy intake and carbon footprint. First, we intend to make our water sector more energy efficient, targeting our most energy-intensive sources of water, desalinated water and new water. For desalinated water, every cubic meter requires 3.5 kilowatt-hours of energy and generates 1.4 kilograms of CO2 emissions. With a long-term R&D plan, we aim to halve those numbers. For new water, which is our high-grade reclaimed water, we're examining new technologies in reverse osmosis to increase the recovery rate while keeping energy consumption and maintenance costs constant. We can recycle each used water endlessly with less energy than before. Second, we are increasing our use of renewable energy. In July, we'll be officially opening one of the largest floating solar panel systems in the world on one of our reservoirs, Tengah Reservoir. The solar panel system will generate enough solar power to meet the energy demands of our 5 water treatment plants. Singapore will be one of the first countries in the world to have a fully green waterworks system. We will progressively deploy more solar photovoltaic systems in other reservoirs such as Bedok and Lower Seletar reservoirs and use the solar energy to power our raw water pumping stations in the area. Third, we will enhance resource efficiency by tapping on synergies with other sectors. An example is the Tuas Nexus, an integrated solid waste-to-energy, used water treatment and reclamation facility, and food waste-to-energy plant set to be operational from 2025. The Tuas Nexus will be self-sufficient in energy. Apart from solar power and the WTE incinerator, the used water sludge and food waste will be combined to produce biogas. No fossil fuels are needed to power the Nexus operations. Waste reduction and resource recovery will lead us towards our vision of a sustainable future in water. We hope to contribute to global water security through collaboration and partnerships. We can learn and collaborate from each other on tackling common challenges. In the last 2 decades, PUB has engaged in around 660 research projects, collaborating with partners from 30 countries. Partners include academic researchers from universities, companies from the industry, and utilities organizations from other locations. PUB is currently working with partners on sequestering carbon with seawater and other waste streams. We hope that this research could lead us to new solutions that drastically reduce our carbon emissions. We're scouring the world for innovative solutions. On coastal protection, Singapore and the Netherlands have jointly organized a series of workshops on issues such as mitigating rising sea levels and developing climate-resilient infrastructure. PUB has formed an expert panel on coastal protection comprising local and international experts to recommend solutions that enhance Singapore's flood resilience against the combined effects of inland flooding, rising sea levels, and storm surges. To cast our net widely for innovation, PUB launched its first Global Innovation Challenge last year and received 100 submissions from 20 countries. 8 companies were awarded pilot funding, access to real-world test beds in PUB's facilities, and mentorship and commercialization opportunities through the Singapore Water Exchange. If these pilots are successful, PUB will help these companies bring their products to market. The second edition of this challenge will be launched later this month, and we look forward to receiving more proposals. Another area for international collaboration has arose from the COVID-19 pandemic. To monitor the spread of COVID-19, we embarked on wastewater surveillance, which has helped us target our testing resources and isolate infected clusters effectively. PUB's collaboration with the Global Water Research Coalition facilitated the rapid sharing of methods, protocols, and data on COVID-19. We have now added wastewater surveillance to our toolbox for fighting COVID-19. The SIWW2021 Spotlight today brings us together to discuss how we can work to achieve water sustainability through innovation. We are gathered here to co-create solutions to global challenges such as the effects of climate change, a pandemic such as COVID-19, and water resilience. Over the next 2 weeks, SIWW 2021 Online is set to deliver a wide range of utility and industry-focused content, covering every aspect of the urban water cycle. Delegates can look forward to the flagship SIWW Water Convention, featuring over 350 technical papers. There are also over 40 thematic webinars on emerging topics of interest, such as resource resilience, climate resilience, and digital water, and specially curated innovation to practice sessions, profiling the end-user innovation journeys of industry and utilities. PUB has organized a Water Expo at SIWW 2021 Online, which features more than 120 international exhibitors showcasing cutting-edge technologies and solutions in water management. I hope you participate actively in these 2 weeks of events. More importantly, I urge everyone to find the time to meet and hold discussions, as these conversations are key to generating ideas to deal with water issues around the world. We look forward to continuing the conversations face-to-face at SIWW 2022, which will be held from 17th to 21st April 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister, for your opening address. The first plenary session at Spotlight will be on the theme Fostering Innovation and Collaboration, Overcoming Challenges for Water Sustainability. The moderator for this session is Mr. Sharad Somani, Asia Pacific Head of Infrastructure at KPMG. For our plenary sessions today, we will be using the Q&A and chat functions located to the right of the screen. We invite you to drop your questions or vote on the question that you'd like to see answered during the Q&A segment. I will now hand the time over to Sharad. Sharad, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ryan. Good morning, all, and welcome to the first plenary session of Singapore International Water Week 2021. The topic of today's discussion, fostering innovation and collaboration, overcoming challenges for water sustainability, is very pertinent in the pace of a world slowly coming out of the pandemic and getting ready to commit on net zero targets at COP26 later this year. A low carbon economy hinges on a multitude of factors, water being one of the critical ones. As Minister Grace Fu just highlighted, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal 6 envisages ensuring the availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all within the current decade. The pandemic has highlighted the urgency of a global response to meeting sustainable development goals. The progress in water and sanitation sector has been derailed to some extent in the last couple of years. For us to bring it on track would require a holistic solution that integrates innovation and collaboration. Innovation that helps leverage best in technology, institutional capabilities, and financing mechanisms. Collaboration that brings all the stakeholders from civil societies and private sector to collectively address the problems, and evolve effective, sustainable solutions. Water has disproportionately high impact on quality of human life, both on a standalone basis as well as the impact, the progress on other SDGs, particularly global health, education, food, gender equality, energy, and climate change. Lack of progress in meeting SDG 6 targets will jeopardize our ability to meet various other bilateral and multilateral commitments covering trade, environment, and energy transition. To help assess the challenges and hear about innovative solutions being put together collaboratively by the sector stakeholders, today we have leaders from the industry to share their stories. Individually and collectively, they are making a huge positive difference in the water sector. Collaboration between government, utilities, developers, technology providers, consulting companies, and multilateral organizations is becoming an imperative. The 8 members on the panel today are working to bring innovative solutions, technology breakthroughs, policy and regulatory conduciveness, and financing alternatives to help develop a sustainable water sector. They are in the driver's seat to help provide access to safely managed water and sanitation services. Access to clean water in a secure and sustainable manner is a fundamental goal that collectively we must address. With technological innovation and use cases in the utility industry, we have all the necessary tools and resources with us. Let us hear from our panel members on how we can bring this all together to best meet the SDG target by 2030. Let me first start by inviting each of the panel members to give a short opening speech. This will be a teaser highlighting their role in the water sector and their passion for innovation and collaboration to meet the sector challenges. We will then deep dive into some of the emerging themes from this discussion. I invite all of you to please send in your questions using the chat function on the virtual platform. We will pick up these questions as we progress the panel discussion over in the next 90 minutes. The technology platform today will ensure that the quality of interaction and knowledge exchange will be as seamless as it has been in all the previous in-person SIWW events. So let me first welcome HP Nanda, Global Vice President and General Manager, DuPont Water Solutions. DuPont brings technology-driven solutions to various sectors, including the water sector. Mr. Nanda will talk about the abundant possibilities that flow with water. HP, over to you.
Thank you, Sharad. Hi, everyone. It's a privilege and honor to be speaking to you on a topic that is so close to my heart. Water is a global challenge. And as a human civilization of thousands of years, we have been able to overcome many challenges. The key question in front of us today is, can we proactively manage water as a precious resource in a way we can create what we call WOW, Water Optimized World. And what is this water optimized world? It's a dream or it's a vision of creating a world where we have 7.8 billion people get access to safe and clean water everywhere, every day. The industry is able to produce the products we need every single day with less consumption of water. We are able to reuse wastewater so that not a drop is wasted, because we don't call it wastewater, we call it wasted water. And we have to do all these solutions in a way it is sustainable. The good news, if we can make this world in the water optimized world, water will be abundant, not scarce. Water would be accessible, not elusive. Water would be affordable, but not undervalued. And water would be adaptable, because there is no one world. We have to find solutions that is customized for every single local market or situation. And I strongly believe the technologies that we have today, we have all the technologies to create this type of world. And our industry is trying to produce even the new technologies and to make the existing technologies better and more affordable. For DuPont Water Solutions, we have enough of examples, from chemical plants in China to textile mills in India to food and beverage manufacturing sites in US and Western Europe, where by deploying technologies, we are able to deliver economic benefit, financial benefit, and environmental benefit at the same time. And just to the comment that our minister made in the opening address, even we have an ongoing research program with PUB to deploy one of our technologies to reduce the energy consumption of desalination by 20%. So we have, I think there are a lot of technical solutions available in the world. Then the question that you'll ask me, then what is the challenge? And I think here is the challenge. The psychologists talk about two ways of problem solving. One is called seeing the world in a very simple way. And a simple way of looking at the world is very helpful when the problem is very specific and siloed. The alternate approach of a problem solving is increase the complexity of our mental perspectives. In a way, we can look at the whole ecosystem, and then we can see the interconnectedness and the working of the different parts of the ecosystem and do what we call holistic problem solving that Sarab spoke about. And when we do holistic problem solving, that is really helpful and essential for societal problems like water scarcity. But we all know holistic problem solving, no one individual, no one company, no one organization, no one government can do it. It really requires all the stakeholders to come together to co-create solutions and using and leveraging the competencies across industries, sectors, and borders. So I'm an eternal optimist. I strongly believe and urge that we all can work together and hopefully one day create a water optimized world. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, HP. That is wow. Water optimized world. Thank you for that positive note, and thank you for quoting some examples of technology changes that are happening, including 20% reduction in energy consumption in desalination. HP, if I can just quickly ask, how do you see utilities adopting and accepting some of these technologies? Do you see they are proactively accommodating these technologies, or you see there's a resistance to give up the old ways?
No, thank you. You know, so I've been working in the water industry for 3.5 years, and I realize this is an industry, and for all the good reasons, we have to do a lot of hard work for deployment and acceptance of new technologies. I'll give you one example. We have a textile plant in India where it was very difficult for the textile mill to not only be in operation, but have the right to operate, because the high salt content wastewater was getting discharged to the nearby agricultural fields, and they destroyed the crops because of the high salinity. We deployed a number of technologies from our side, and we are able to reuse most of the water, and we take out the salt from the wastewater and put it back in the manufacturing process, because salt is a key ingredient that goes into the textile manufacturing process. So by reusing salt, by reusing wastewater, we are able to reduce the cost, we are able to deliver the financial benefits and the right to operate, because the textile mill is now able to not only minimize the discharge of water and have a wonderful relationship with the communities you operate. So when you think about deploying solution, I realize there is nothing called one water anywhere in the world. The water in Singapore is very different from the water in Malaysia, in the next door. So it really requires going to customer by customer, finding what challenges they face and customizing the solution in a way we can really deliver the value of this pool of technologies.
Wonderful. Thanks, HP. That was really a good holistic example of how solutions can help the industry. So on that positive and insightful note, let us now welcome the utility that has been leading from the front. Whether it is leveraging private partnership for water security or implementing best-in-class technology solutions for better water management, the Public Utilities Board of Singapore has ensured a diversified and sustainable supply of water. The agency also leads and coordinates whole of government efforts to protect Singapore from the threat of rising sea levels, as well as the holistic management of inland and coastal flood risks. The Chief Executive of PUB, Peter Ng's vision is to leverage technological innovation through international collaborations to create a self-sustaining utility. Peter, welcome, and over to you.
Saurabh, thank you. Thank you for having me. I speak from the point of view of a water utility. And in a water utility, there are many ways to design a successful operation. In PUB, we find it useful to think about our operations in terms of 3 dimensions or 3 pillars, if you will. And these are, number 1, adequacy, number 2, resilience, and number 3, sustainability. And adequacy, resilience, and sustainability are all different things, but are equally important for our success. You can think of them as the feet of a 3-legged stool. One broken foot and the whole thing collapses. So let me quickly describe why they are different before I speak specifically about sustainability, which is one of the 3. First, adequacy. Adequacy just means having enough. In our case, it is having enough capacity to produce water to meet demand, being able to treat every drop of sewage, and having enough drainage to cope with the storms and to prevent flooding. PUB obviously must always be adequate. Second is resilience. Resilience is about being tough, being resistant to shocks to the system, and being able to recover quickly should there be a disruption or a disturbance. Last but not least is sustainability. And in my mind, sustainability just means endurance. Everyone who likes to run will understand this. In a marathon, you have to keep a sustainable pace if you want to finish the race. Run too fast and you cannot keep it up and you will not finish. Too slow and you become inefficient. So in PUB, to be sustainable means that our system must be easily operable for long periods, rather than one that becomes too expensive or too cumbersome to run after a short while. So to be adequate, to be resilient, and to be sustainable are all different things, but they're all important. And to be successful in our mission, PUB has to pay equal attention to all 3. Now, let me quickly speak specifically about the challenges that we see which threatens our operational sustainability. To use water only once and then throw it away is not sustainable, because in Singapore, we will never have enough. But to capture, to recycle, and to reuse every drop of used water is infinitely sustainable. Of course, we in Singapore have been doing this for more than 20 years, and it solves our scarcity challenge. The other challenge is energy and carbon. It takes energy to produce water and to treat sewage. Singapore imports all of its energy in the form of fossil fuels. This was okay in the past, but it's not going to be okay in the future. For our planet to continue to be hospitable, the unrestrained burning of fossil fuels is no longer a sustainable thing to do. To reduce carbon emissions, PUB has to reduce our energy consumption. Then we have to, as much as we can, replace the energy that we do consume with zero carbon renewables. But to be carbon neutral, which is our ultimate aim, we will also have to capture the carbon that we are releasing. And to do all these things will obviously require innovation, new technologies, and new operating methods. And we are collaborating with several other parties on how this can be best done. For example, PUB is working with researchers in UCLA in the US on the removal of CO2 from the seawater that we take into our desalination plants. This involves electrolysis, which not just removes carbon, but also produces useful hydrogen and then softens the seawater, which is in turn easier to desalinate and saves us energy. The last thing I want to very quickly talk about is waste. Everyone who works in a water utility will know about sludge. Sludge gives us a huge headache. In Singapore, we typically incinerate our sewage sludge. Even so, we are still left with 30,000 tons of incinerated ash and waterworks sludge every year, which we have to landfill. This represents 6% of all the solid waste that Singapore generates annually. The problem is Singapore is running out of landfill space. We expect to have no more landfills in 15 years' time. So our current way of managing water treatment sludge is obviously unsustainable. We have to find ways to generate less sludge and also ways to turn that sludge into something useful. And to achieve this, the applicable technologies that we are looking at are things like thermal hydrolysis, anaerobic MBR, sludge pyrolysis, slagging gasification, and sintering, among other things. So to conclude, it is very clear to me that business as usual, as we know it, is unsustainable because our current methods will not let us become energy or carbon neutral, and they will also not allow us to generate no waste. Even in the very boring and very staid world of water utilities, there is so many innovation that we will need to adopt and to implement if we ever want to continue doing our work in a way that is truly sustainable into the far future. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for highlighting those challenges and innovative solutions you are pursuing as part of the PUB's program to offer better service. Couple of quick points, Peter. One was you are also, I know, involved in deploying of advanced metering infrastructure, as well as PUB is now the nodal agency for coastal protection. These are strategically very, very important initiatives in terms of managing the consumers as well as protecting the country. Do you want to make a quick comment on that as well?
As far as coastal protection and climate change are concerned, I will talk about it later when you ask me the question on resilience. Sure. But smart metering, it's a no-brainer, you know, because it saves water. It allows the consumer to become smart. The way I like to think about it is the smart water meter is like the speedometer and the tachometer in your car, right? Imagine if you drive without a speedometer, you don't know what speed you're going at. And basically that's the situation with water consumers today. You don't know how much water you used this morning, Sharad, right? But with a smart meter, you will know. And because you will know, you will use it more, you know, more effectively and more efficiently. And that saves water. And because it saves water, it saves energy. And therefore less carbon is released. So that's really our main motivation.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Peter, for that. That's very insightful. And yes, let's pick up the conversation as part of the resilience as well. Next, we welcome Alan Ryder, founder and chief executive of RSK Group. Alan, special thanks to you for being awake in the middle of the night from UK to attend this conference. Much appreciated. Over the last 33 years, since the inception of the company, the RSK team has been providing environmental engineering and technical solutions to help develop a climate resilience business. RSK recently acquired the water business of Black & Veatch in UK and Asia, which will be operating under the Beneath brand as part of the RSK Group. Alan, we all are very excited to have you with us and look forward to your thoughts on the future of the water sector. Alan, over to you.
Well, thank you all so much, and I'm really pleased to be with you and to join your panel. Thank you. Of course, I'd have been much happier if I could have been in Singapore, enjoying your beautiful country in person. That would have been lovely. I've been looking forward to visiting Singapore, so disappointed not to be there today, but I'm still delighted that we were able to go ahead, have this meeting virtually, and overcome the problems that we have with COVID. So who is this Alan Ryder and RSK? I'm sure none of you have heard of me before, probably don't know RSK either. So RSK is a business I set up 32 years ago when I left university. And back then I was just finishing my PhD, looking at the environmental impact of the oil and gas industry. And that was the beginnings of my company. But today, RSK is a business of 7,000 people. Half of our people and half of our income comes from the water sector. And we've been involved in the water industry for quite some years, but it's been in recent years where we've taken the decision to invest heavily in the sector. So a couple of years ago, we acquired the business Nicholas O'Dwyer. Then last year, Water Research Centre, which many of you will know. And then just at the beginning of this year, we acquired the water business from Black & Veatch. And in homage to the 100 years of pedigree under the Binny's name, we've rebranded that business as Binny's. So we have now Binny's in Singapore, Binny's in Hong Kong, and Binny's in the UK. RSK is an umbrella organisation. We're 100 different businesses within the group, but we're all collaborating, innovating, supporting each other with a common purpose. And that purpose is the resolution of the environmental problems society faces. And those are characterized by those 17 UN Sustainability Development Goals. Let me turn now to the trends that we see in the water sector. They're the very same trends that underpin my business, those 17 SDGs. And they have a huge impact on us. Not just the obvious ones like number 6, the clean water and sanitation, or number 14, life below water. No, water is at the very essence of life and is inextricably linked with all the SDGs, whether it's to do with climate or zero hunger, and obviously our drive for sustainable agriculture, consuming less water, or sustainable cities. We must innovate if we are to find solutions to the problems we face. Our changing climate is creating extreme weather events, flash floods, rising sea levels. We have a growing population. 200 years ago, 1 billion people on the planet. Today, nearly 8 billion. What will it be in the next 200 years? Will it be 10 billion? Will it be many more than that? We already have water poverty and problems of sanitation. At last, we are now recognizing that water is a scarce and precious resource. It is not a throwaway commodity. Singapore recognizes this, and you are seeking and implementing innovation years ahead of other nations. And I was so impressed by the PUB publication last year, Digitalizing Water, where you share Singapore's experience. It is a must read for everyone interested in the water sector. The need to go digital is being recognized by my companies, Binny's, WRC and Nicholas O'Dwyer, and they're developing some great innovations. EcoX, IDAMS, Helix, the digital platform, IDAMS, where we're looking to use remote sensing for looking at dam integrity, preventing failures and planning maintenance. Here in Singapore, I am delighted that PUB have awarded us a contract for the provision of professional engineering services and for construction supervision for the reconstruction of the CCK waterworks. At CCK, we can adopt automation and technology to reduce energy consumption. We can optimize chemical use. We can monitor operations, use artificial intelligence to predict faults. And with our digital twin, we can model, optimize, and train our professionals. We can help achieve the goals that you set out in digitalizing water. We can create value. We can improve efficiency. We can create a better workplace. And all these things will help create a better customer experience. I believe this project can be a blueprint of the future for water plants in Singapore and elsewhere. Finally, I'm so excited by what I see in Singapore and the vision that you have. I want RSK to invest, and we're going to create our Centre for Sustainability Excellence. Conversations I've been having with the Singapore Economic Development Board have been hugely supportive of our plans. I'm so grateful to all the guys and ladies there that have been so helpful. Thank you. Singapore is a global leader in sustainability, and it's therefore fitting and mutually beneficial for RSK to invest there and build our sustainability centre in Singapore. I see Singapore as being our springboard into the Asia Pacific market and supporting all of our business there. So thank you so much. I'm really looking forward to building RSK in Singapore and working with you in the years to come.
Thank you, Alan, for the partnership with Singapore. And digital water is something which is really very close to all our hearts. You just briefly mentioned about the Center of Sustainability Excellence at RSK, which I know is very close to your heart. Can you talk a little bit more about that as well?
So we see four main areas of research that we would like to undertake in Singapore, and looking to apply that research in Singapore and in the Asian market. And those four areas are digital water, which we've been touching upon already, sustainable agriculture, where we're looking to optimize food production and use less energy and waste less in the process. We're looking at the carbon footprint of all that we do, and in particular, we're looking at carbon accounting and carbon finance. And then the fourth area that we're going to focus on are renewables. So as was mentioned earlier, floating solar is a very interesting area, but so is nearshore tidal, so is hydrogen, so is wind. So there's a whole host of areas of research that we're interested in, and we hope to collaborate with the universities in Singapore, where there's some great innovative thinking, and develop our capability through collaboration, both with government and with the academic institutes there.
Perfect, thanks. Alan, we'll come back to some of those, as I see a number of questions flowing in as well from the audience. So let's park it for some time. Next, I would like to invite Jennifer Sara from the World Bank. As Global Director for Water Practice, Jennifer has been driving technological as well as financial innovation across countries, working closely with utilities as well as the private sector. Jennifer, welcome to Singapore International Water Week. Over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Harad, and it's nice to be back. I can't believe it's been a year, because I think we did this again, it was previously last year. And I really do want to thank and recognize the government of Singapore and PUB for bringing us all together. And Peter, I really want to install one of these smart meters at home in the bathroom that my teenagers use to take showers, so that cuts off and let them start charging them for the water they overconsume. But no, in all seriousness, I view our role at the World Bank's Global Water Practice as enablers of innovation in the sector across our $25 billion portfolio in our client countries in Africa, Asia, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Latin America. And we see ourselves as serving as a bridge between our government partners and all of you, our technology and solution providers, so that we can provide answers to current and future challenges in novel and innovative ways. You know, over the last 18 months and still going on now, you know, we have this immense death toll and sickness of the COVID-19 pandemic, but let's also remember that millions of people across the world have been thrown back into poverty. And the world's poor are bearing the brunt of the crisis. And we know that there are three converging forces that drive this increase in global poverty. It's the COVID pandemic, it's conflict and fragility, it's climate change. And in many cases, the three drivers are directly and indirectly related to water. And as Alan, our previous speaker, just said, we know that water touches every aspect of development and flows through nearly every sustainable development goal. And yet we are grossly off track for delivering on SDG 6. And there's devastating consequences on a daily basis for children, for women, for men who do not have continuous and reliable access to water and sanitation. And this is our global challenge, and it's a moral challenge for all of us. I've been working in this sector for over 30 years, and to see that the needle's not moving, we still have so many people in the world without access to basic services, is something that we all need to unite to do something about. But I think there's hope, because we do have hope on these innovative technologies and how we can support countries leapfrog and learn from the Singapores of the world, learn from all the companies and the new products. And I think that's really what we are doing at the World Bank, is to try to support our client countries access these new technologies. But we also recognize that adopting new technologies and innovations requires a series of ascending steps. So we can't just look at the water sector alone, but if we look at, we want mobile payment, but we also need to make sure that we have the telecommunications backbone and the infrastructure and smartphones to do that. So therefore, solutions have to be tailored, obviously, to local country contexts. And at the World Bank, we believe the key is also to get the fundamentals right in the sector. And by fundamentals, we mean functional and efficient institutions, effective policies, financially viable tariffs that also meet the needs of the poor and so on. And so we really continuously work with our clients to ensure that they get these fundamentals right and ensure that the sector becomes attractive to private finance and to investments in innovation to improve the outcomes and livelihoods in the communities where we work. And as I mentioned, this importance of helping countries leapfrog into the most cutting edge technology as it becomes available so that they can skip many of the steps that other countries have made that have locked them into inefficient technologies. And they can move straight into all these exciting approaches you've just mentioned, circular economy approaches, reusing, recycling, leveraging the energy water nexus, waste nexus too. I think, Peter, what you're saying about the sludge is incredibly important, the waste to energy. And that's really the very reason we want to collaborate with PUB and all of you. So one initiative that we do have at the World Bank that we actually just launched this year is called the Utilities of the Future. And this is to use innovative approaches to address the current challenges and demands to help utilities build back better, as we say, or build back forward. And so the Utility of the Future initiative incorporates forward-looking principles of resilience, energy and water efficiency, innovation, and fit-for-purpose governance. And it embraces emerging technologies that enable smarter management of water resources and assist utilities to improve resilience and effectively treat wastewater. And one thing that's interesting with Utilities of the Future is if you can start benchmarking, agreeing on what the indicators are that you want to benchmark, and that you can then compare them across countries, it does help utilities to see where's the gap and how do you meet that gap. And so that's why it's important also to look at these gaps and to think about not just the need for new technological solutions, but new ways of approaching financing, inclusion, data, procurement. Procurement's very important. How do you help governments procure new technologies with a results-based focus as opposed to a technology-neutral focus? So in financing, in the Water Global Practice, we have a financial innovation team. We call it FIT. And it's launched in response to our clients trying to request how do you mobilize financial resources that draw both on the public sector and also on the private sector. And this is a whole World Bank group approach. So it involves our colleagues in the private sector, the International Finance Corporation, IFC, and our private sector and the Multilateral Investment Guarantee Agency, MIGA, which is the bank's agency that offers political risk insurance and credit enhancement guarantees. So an example of where we have played a role in enabling innovative finance in the water sector is in the blending of commercial funds with public resources for wastewater improvement in Metro Manila. So the World Bank put in $275 million, and they were channeled through a private bank to the two private concessionaires, Metro Manila and Manila Water and Manila Water. And these concessionaires also used their own commercial funds to blend with the bank's funds to make improvements in wastewater collection and treatment in Metro Manila, helping to reduce health risks and improve the environment. And just one other final example is an enabling financial innovation that we did in China, one of the first ones we did, which is a Sichuan PPP project, where the selection of the private operator is now underway. But also, this is where the bank combines our financing with commercial finance so that the private operator can be hired to improve the delivery of rural water and sanitation services across the province. And the district government owns the assets and supervises the private operator as they meet the targets of the concession. So let me stop there. We have many other examples from across the world, but let me just stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Those are lovely examples. And I like build back forward, which is a powerful thing for leapfrogging utilities in the developing countries. So not necessarily each country has to go through 2G, 3G, 4G, but they can straight away leapfrog to 5G of the water sector for sure. Jennifer, you oversee a $30 billion water portfolio of the World Bank, and water sector still lags behind the energy sector in terms of attracting funds from private sector as well as multilateral agencies. You made a mention of blended financing Do you see that taking off big time in the short to medium term, given the requirements of the water sector?
So, I mean, this is what we're trying to do every day, is to break that lock. Why does the private sector not invest more in the water sector? And as I mentioned, it goes back to the fundamentals. How do you create confidence for private sector investment on the policy and the regulatory side to give confidence and long-term reliability, but the tariffs. And Alan did mention the valuing of water, and utilities need to have a tariff, a cost recovery tariff. Now, if there's a social tariff that's also needed for the poor, that's also very important. And that's why the role of government of looking at tariffs and subsidies that allow for utilities to achieve cost recovery is very, very important. And that's really the basis. The financing and the regulatory certainty we understand to be the backbone to be able to crowd in the private sector investment.
Indeed, indeed. No, thank you for that. I think we need indeed a holistic solution to make it commercially attractive as well. Next up is Patrick Decker, the President and Chief Executive of Xylem. Over the last 7 years as CEO of Xylem, Patrick has been incorporating digital solutions in water technologies and deepening the commitment to sustainability. Welcome, Patrick, and tell us more about the Solving Water for a Resilient World mission of Xylem.
Sure. Thanks, Shira. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. I don't take it for granted. Terrific to be here. Thanks for the invitation. I wrote a lot of notes down whenever Peter was speaking. Adequacy, resilience, sustainability. Peter, we use a little bit different words, but two of them overlap, and that was resilience and sustainability. Adequacy, we talk about in terms of scarcity, but it's the same thing. And I want to start with why are we all here? When I had the chance to speak to students, young folks in our company, I say the World Economic Forum says that by 2050, up to 25% of the world's population is going to be facing absolute water scarcity. In the US today, those who make the lowest 20% wages, the water bill can be up to 20% of their net take-home pay. These are big issues. And when I think about 2050 to the younger folks, I always say, hey, that seems like a long time away, until you realize a day becomes a week a month, a quarter a year a decade. And next thing you know, you're my age. 2050 is going to be here a lot sooner than any of us care to imagine. So, we have got to challenge the status quo. We cannot continue to do things the way that we've always done them. Innovation is imperative at this point, and it's not just technology. Sharad, it's not, the technologies that are required to solve these issues already exist. It's not just technology. It's a frame of mind. It's about business models. It's about working with our utility customers and our communities to look at things in a different way. It's also, I would be remiss if I didn't take the opportunity here to call out the work that our utility partners have done throughout the pandemic is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. Thank you. Thank you. And I think now more than ever, communities appreciate and understand better than ever how vital water is to our society. I want to talk about public engagement. Water is not somebody else's issue. It's my issue. It's your issue. It's our issue all together. And at the end of the day, we have extraordinary opportunities in front of us to solve it, to solve the challenges. There is the opportunity right now, in my view, And I'm not, most of you thought I would come on here and start talking about a Xylem commercial. No. We have a tagline that says, let's solve water. Remove the apostrophe and it says, let us solve water. We all have to do this together. We're focused ourselves on creating a platform that uses innovation and technology to solve these challenges. But again, this stretches far beyond technology. In my view, it's about creating awareness, especially amongst youth. We have a great partnership with Manchester City, NYC Football Club, other groups that are out there. And the idea is to get the younger generation to say, we are not going to tolerate the status quo. We're not. Because the solutions exist for us to actually go make a difference. And I'm trying to be very provocative here in this conversation. We have the opportunity of a lifetime to solve this challenge. And I want to be a part of doing it long before I leave this planet. And I would love to have all the questions coming in, Sharad, that would challenge us as leaders in this sector to go make a difference. This is the opportunity of a lifetime. With that, back to you, Sharad.
Thank you. Thank you, Patrick. I think with all tools, technology, and resources available, I think it will be a pity if we can't address this challenge for the next generation, isn't it? You very eloquently talked about digital and innovation, partnerships and collaboration, public awareness and engagement for a sustainable planet. Jennifer earlier talked about utility of the future. What is your vision of water utility of the future, Patrick?
I mean, very, very simply, it's easier said than done. And again, Peter he's far better equipped to answer this than I am. But I think it is having a digital view of your footprint, so that, like going to the doctor's office, you're able to get an assessment of the health of your entire being, so that whenever you have to make a choice around where you spend the next dollar of OPEX or CAPEX to generate the best outcome, where do you do that? Peter, you've said before to me and many others, it's also the security of the network. There are a lot of bad things that can happen that Peter and other utility leaders are charged with making sure the rest of us never have to worry about it. But it's a serious issue. And so I think, affordability, when Peter says resilience to me is not just keeping it up and running physically, it's keeping it secure. But all of that has to be done in a way that's affordable. It all costs money, and everything has to generate a very good financial return.
Perfect. No, I think that thanks for that passionate message on resilience, secure, and affordable, Peter. Next, we move to Jacobs, a leading provider of engineering services across sectors, including water. Steve Demetrio is the chairman and chief executive of Jacobs. He's a passionate advocate of diversity and inclusion, as is evident from a shift in the composition of the executive team from all male to 50% females in the last 5 years since he took over as CEO, as well as sustainability with the launch of Plan Beyond, an initiative to think beyond today for sustainable future. Welcome, Steve. Over to you.
Thank you, and hello, everyone. It's a real pleasure to join today on behalf of Jacobs. We're a global technology-forward solutions company. We have a talent workforce of 55,000 people, and we're united by a singular purpose, what we're talking about today, to deliver solutions for a more connected, sustainable world. And the United Nations has reported that progress on Sustainable Development Goal number 6 for clean water and sanitation is alarmingly off track. The rate of progress on achieving the UN targets for water and sanitation must now quadruple in order to meet the 2030 deadline. We're 9 years away, and water sources are drying up, becoming more polluted. Water-intensive industries such as agriculture and energy generation are growing to meet the need of an expanding population, and it's resulting in a substantial gap between global water supply and demand, which is projected to reach 40% by 2030. This means that solutions for addressing the global water crisis must engage multiple stakeholders from all sectors of society. There is no new water on the planet. When city populations double or triple, their water resources don't. We can't afford to use water once, as you've heard today. That's why we need to think differently, viewing all water as one valuable resource. As the imbalance of global water supply and demand intensifies, solving the world's most complex water challenges requires one water thinking. At Jacobs, our appreciation for the value of water is linked to three foundational elements of the one water approach. First, Jacobs recognizes the uniqueness in each watershed, each community, and each water-related challenge. Secondly, we understand that all water challenges are interconnected as it relates to the elements of the water cycle and water users, but also the synergies with non-water markets like transportation, energy, and the built environment. Our ability to integrate across disciplines allows us to deliver solutions that consider environmental, economic, and social impacts, and of course, benefits. And thirdly, we're committed to developing water solutions that are sustainable, inclusive, and equitable. With the increased priority for social equity, as we heard Jennifer Sara mention in her remarks, we're working with water utilities across the globe to proactively adopt water equity and social and environmental justice initiatives that prioritize community benefits through capital investments in water, wastewater, and stormwater infrastructure. Positively challenging what infrastructure can do for the enduring social value of our communities in the future is imperative. For example, in New Mexico, more than 40% of Navajo Nation households depend on hauling water to meet their daily needs, and significant water improvements are required for irrigation, livestock, business, healthcare, and schools. Jacobs was the design build lead for a project that's now providing a clean, reliable, and long-term water source for the Navajo and Jicarilla Apache communities along the Cutter Lateral in New Mexico, a project that's been critical to improving living conditions and to providing clean drinking water to combat COVID-19 now and into the future. Jacobs has accelerated digital transformation in the global water and wastewater market by providing resilient solutions with our digital twin technology to help companies manage their distributed workforces efficiently. And as we heard from Peter, with cyber terrorism on the rise, we must protect our assets, and it's critical that water providers do that. Jacobs has leading expertise in operational technology, cybersecurity. We provide cyber solutions for protection of many of our clients' water operations. And while focused on the pandemic, utilities have managed to continue to innovate and deliver against global climate goals. By maintaining our focus on reuse and the circular economy, the water sector has an opportunity to be the global exemplar for truly sustainable development. The Singapore Green Plant 2030, as we heard earlier from Minister Grace Fu, aims to accelerate Singapore's commitments under the UN's 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. One aspect to highlight is the importance of the circular economy as part of Singapore's sustainable living goal. Singapore continues to lead at the forefront, empowering the nation through the circular economy, leveraging precious resources many times over. An example is the development of Public Utility Board's high-grade reclaimed water, known as New Water. Working in partnership with Singapore's PUB, we at Jacobs turned water vulnerability into an opportunity to pilot new technologies and innovative solutions, serving as an international model for water management that extends across all facets of water cycle. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Jacob has been one of the leading companies driving sustainability agenda and inviting corporates to pledge measurable actions to urgently address climate change as part of your plan beyond. May I ask how has been the response and what has been the trade-offs for your clients to manage climate change and business profitability?
It's the number one priority almost in every program or project that we're delivering today at Jacobs. And we're fostering sustainability across all our key sectors, not just water. Our biggest opportunity, comes through our market domain knowledge and leveraging the work we perform with our clients, from the world's largest infrastructure projects, mission critical outcomes, cutting edge manufacturing. And when we partner with our clients, we challenge the accepted, the norm. We're designing resilient solutions that positively affect projected climate change impacts and to try to discover a new sustainable way forward. And, an example in the water sector is what we've been talking about today. We at Jacobs, we got a 25-year partnership with PUB as they've been pioneers in the One Water approach, for water sustainability. And it's so impressive how Singapore has taken a holistic and progressive approach to sustainable water management, diversifying, identifying the key sources of water, integrated approach. PUB safeguards Singapore's water resources through 4 national TAPS programs: local catchment water, imported water, new water, and desalinated water. And this has allowed PUB to create a long-term water supply strategy. And it's been the model, for global technology across other regions around the world.
Thank you. Perfect. That's a very insightful. We'll touch upon some of these issues as we get into the detailed discussion. Next, I invite Asian Development Bank. As we know, ADB has been committed to water sector development and security in Asia. Its most recent Asian Water Development Outlook report highlights the criticality of water security in Asia, where 27 out of the 49 countries face serious water constraints on economic development. Neeta Pokhrel, as the chief of the water sector group, has been leading the charge for meeting ADB's goal of resilient and water secure Asia and the Pacific. Welcome, Neeta, and over to you.
Thank you, Sharad. Greetings, everyone. I'm delighted to be here to represent ADB as this topic focuses the 3 key areas we are also very passionate about: cultivating innovation, long-term collaboration with partners, and our commitment to water security, as you just highlighted. But when it comes to water security in our region, the glass is still half full for many of us. I have to thank Patrick from Xylem. He just now painted this picture quite vividly and provocatively on where we are on water security. Thank you, Patrick. In our region, in Asia and the Pacific, about 300 million people still have no access to safely manage or basic water services. And here we are talking smart meters and innovations and futures. And we all know, and probably some of us are still going through it, how harshly we were reminded last year with COVID-19 pandemic, that water security is not only crucial for fostering and sustaining inclusive development. Jennifer also highlighted how it is cross-cutting for all SDGs, but we were reminded how critical it is dealing with shocks like this pandemic and for tackling climate change. So as we continue responding to the pandemic and plan to build back a more resilient economy, we must remind ourselves to remain focused, retain our pace and our investments on meeting the SDG6 commitments. At ADB, we have been doing just that, steadily increasing our water sector investment over the years. In 2020, our annual commitment was a bit more than $2.5 billion. And we see this going over $4 billion this year and next year. And in all our water sector projects, we actively promote application of innovation, technologies, best practices, people's capacities, more importantly. And we are actively widening our partnerships development, both with development as well as knowledge partners, and of course, with the private sector to make water management smarter and more resilient through these new innovation and technologies. And Shara, that you just highlighted our flagship publication, the Asian Water Development Outlook, what we call ADO series, began in 2007 and had its 4th edition in December 2030, where we look at or offer a comprehensive assessment of water security to our developing member countries. This ADO covers 5 key dimensions of water security: rural households, urban, economic, environmental, and water-related disaster security. And we feel that tools such as ADO can be a very powerful advocacy and communication tools for our developing members to promote water security, as well as resilience and sustainability. The latest edition shows just how this was done, or ADO was applied by 6 countries, in fact, to improve the water security and their policies. Now, we are also taking some bold steps to respond to water security challenges using innovative solutions and also supporting innovators. Let me just mention 3 here. First is ADB Ventures, which was established in partnership with other innovators and accelerators. It provides seed and early stage capital to startups for solutions for emerging Asia across various themes, inclusive growth, smart infrastructure, and water sustainability, of course. Second, we are now regularly connecting our member countries' government officials, who are really the decision makers and the owners, water utilities and stakeholders there, think tanks, academia, NGOs, and public, even up to the stages of water user groups in communities, to these platforms such as e-marketplace for water management. We launched our first one in March this year, and this will be a regular feature of our water sector group. The first e-marketplace connected 58 solution providers from across the globe for smart water management with our developing member countries and utilities. And I'm glad to see Xylem was also one of them. And of course, PUB is our long-term partner. And there were many technology providers from the Asian region. And third, we are launching various technology innovation challenges for water management and urban development by inviting the technology providers to showcase their smart solutions. Some of them are using data-informed tools and we want to really bring home how do they promote efficiency. Technology is good, but what are we using the technology for? Inclusive, efficient, resilient, and sustainable solutions. And we have also launched various financing tools such as green financing, blue financing hubs, and are actively working with our private sector department to see how do we build an enabling environment to increase private sector investments. And my colleague Jennifer mentioned this issue. All of us are trying to see more of it, but there are really underlying issues when it comes to the enabling environment and how do we tackle that and do it in partnership. Again, we also provide technical assistance to help our member countries pilot these innovative ideas. Just March this year, we published a book documenting some of these results of the technical assistance projects. One was in Makassar in Indonesia and in Suva, Fiji, which piloted some land planning and engineering structure, integrating all aspects of water management into urban design. What we at ADB find works in upscaling technical innovation is when you combine that with visionary leadership and local participation, which then truly results in community resilience and adaptive capacity increase in the long run. We've also been spending, therefore, considerable effort in building capacity of managers and leaders to own these investments, and communities to participate in defining their need and in the operations of the services. So these investments and innovations are in fact sustainable. And we believe this is what will have the catalytic impact. And you may already know in ADB, we have a strong country-focused approach using country partnership strategies as the main platform when we look at what customized support, including the innovative technologies and the partnerships that that particular country may need. And thus we can deliver integrated solution, which is, again, what the country needs and will be a sustainable solution. And this really does need the collaboration and the right mix of the public and private sector operations and the right mix of allocating the risks of the new technology to the right partner. To summarize, ADB's ability to innovate in water sector comes from our support to innovate to our clients, the long-term trust that we have built with our members. We are determined to continue working with all of you. It's good to see so many private sector partners in this panel to craft robust policies, to look at where do we tackle enabling environments, where do we provide financing support, and so that these instruments can be sustainable. Thank you, Sharad. I look forward to the discussions today and over the next 2 weeks here at the Singapore International Water Week.
Thank you. Thank you, Nita. I think how do we leverage technology and digital to improve access to water in the countries in Asia is a powerful theme. In fact, there are a number of questions which are coming asking about how technology can be leveraged from developed countries into developing countries and help the utilities there address the challenges they are facing. So we'll pick up some of those. But if I can ask you a quick question as a follow-up on your speech, is the role that ADB sees in your current role. Have you seen countries and utilities accord a higher priority and bringing a sense of urgency to the sector? How is ADB catalyzing transformation in the regional utilities through some of the programs you mentioned?
Thank you. Yes, that's an interesting question. Though COVID-19 has really made a big dent in the fiscal space, for us in the water sector, we've been seeing it as an opportunity, and we see our clients are doing the same. And I just mentioned to you, our portfolio is in fact steadily growing. It was 2.5 billion last year. Now it's over 4 billion this year and same next year. So we see the appetite to make water services resilient is a big opportunity that COVID-19 has thrown to us. And the usage of technology, in some of the countries that we work, Sharad, this age-old hang up, let's just dig and put the pipes and then we will think of technology later. It is extremely set in people's minds. And we see that especially when you talk rural water services and half of Asia is still rural, they immediately say, we don't need technology. Let's just lay and put the pipes. Let's just connect the taps. And that we see changing. And that is something COVID-19 again has given to us as an opportunity to say, let's make it, let's embed technology. When we're digging the pipes, let's put fiber optic cables. And then we don't have to, pandemics like COVID, we don't have to go to people's houses to collect tariffs or stick some sensors onto the transmission lines. So this we are extremely happy to see, Sharad, and we will also we are mirroring that by really bringing grant financing and partnerships to capture and do extremely aggressive digitization, integration of ICT and space technologies to catch this momentum.
Wonderful, wonderful, Nita. In fact, technology and collaboration should indeed lead to a resilient and sustainable utility, isn't it? Which is all our dream, which we should achieve. Next, let me invite Tan Cheng Guang, Executive Vice President and Head Group Center of Excellence at Sembcorp. Sembcorp is a leading global utilities developer and provider of sustainable solutions. CG, as Mr. Tan is popularly known in the industry, leads the development of advanced engineering and technological capabilities across sectors, including water and waste to resource. Welcome, CG, and over to you.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Peter, for having me to share Sembcorp's experience so far and also our journey going forward. Just as a bit of an introduction on Sembcorp, we have energy, we have urban sustainable solutions, which includes urban development. This is industrial cities development. And as part of the urban sustainable solutions, we have water and waste. In the water side, we have about 8.3 million cubic meters per day of water assets that we invest and we manage. So it's quite a big footprint. Our journey in water started with Jurong Island. And it was born out of a need to try to reduce the cost of customers, chemical customers, petrochemical customers investing in Jurong Island. Singapore is not a cheap place. Land is expensive, utilities are also quite costly. So the challenge was, how do we bring down the cost for these investors? And that's where the collaboration started, with EDB, with JTC, and also the potential customers. And we came up with the business innovation of a centralized utilities model, which means that instead of individual companies investing in their own utility plant to serve their own manufacturing plant. So we have a centralized model whereby the value was created through the economy of scale. So companies can reduce the capex investments and also leveraging on the centralized manpower as well. And what we realized is that through this model, there were a lot of synergies that could be exploited because basically you're connected by pipes with the customers, and waste is not seen as waste anymore. Was not seen as waste anymore. It's seen as a resource. So, for example, we supply steam, we supply demean water, we supply industrial water, we supply cooling water to our customers connected by pipe within the Jurong Island complex. And what we did was we take their wastewater, industrial wastewater, which is very different from depending on the customers you serve, and then we treat them through fairly advanced, technologies. And the biogas that's generated from the anaerobic treatment, we then clean it up and put it into the boiler again to generate steam, and we give them credit. And same thing we were able to exploit on the steam side. So we send the steam to them, they use the heat, they send back the condensate to us, and obviously condensate still have 80-90 degrees temperature. We extract that, and then we heat up the feed to the demean water, and then again give them the credit for the heat. And same thing, the chemical waste that they would otherwise have been sent out for incineration. We design a specialized boiler to take their organic waste, and then we use that to generate steam and then credit to them. So it basically, I think, provides opportunities for us to look at sustainability, right? Which is not a theme that was popular 25 years ago, but it is now. And as a result of that, we found that it doesn't mean greater cost to deliver sustainability. And in the process, of course, reduce our carbon footprint. So with the success of that model, 25 years ago, we were able to expand into China because at the time, early 2000s, the Chinese government were building a series of chemical parks. And we went in there, provide similar kind of centralized utilities to them. And that sort of allowed us to grow. But I think we all know that on the industrial wastewater sector, our model can only work in a chemical park setting, whereby you are able to connect your customers by pipe. So that's a limitation because the centralized model, the chemical park, is only a small percentage of the manufacturing sector out in the market. If you look at China, probably 80-90% of manufacturing are done by smaller manufacturing facilities, $100 to $200-300 million. And so the question is, yes, we had leverage on the business innovation to bring value to our customers, but only those customers that are connected by pipe. How do we serve those, bigger segment of customers? I call them decentralized, dedicated wastewater treatment plants. And these are also extremely difficult to treat wastewater, given that everybody in the chemical industry is trying to make their manufacturing more efficient. And as you succeed in efficiency gains, you also mean that your wastewater streams are getting more and more difficult to treat. So I think that is the challenge that we have because they occupy a large environmental footprint. And if you're not able to help them, improving their sustainability and also their reducing their environmental footprint, then that is a big problem for all of us. So I think this is our journey going forward. So we had learned, I think, from our 25 years of operating industrial wastewater streams, that there's a lot of knowledge that can be gained from operating experience. So we had launched 2 initiatives. One is the Virtual Brain, which is a digital platform. We are developing smart algorithms to try to help optimize wastewater treatment without having to station, expensive skilled manpower, because industrial wastewater treatment is quite challenging compared to municipal water treatment. So if you have a very small facility, but you need to have highly qualified teams on site, then I think it doesn't really create any value. In the centralized utilities model, where we are able to serve maybe 10, 15 customers, and you only have one team, you can afford that. But for this smaller customers, I think it will be difficult. So I think our attempt in creating this digital platform is to be able to reach out beyond the pipes, leverage through internet, whereby we can then use data science to leverage on our operational experience and operating data to deliver high value added solutions to bring down the cost. The other area which that we are also embarking on is a technology platform, incubation platform, because we also realize that current technologies, I think, of course, can treat some of these waste to a certain level, but I think there's probably efficiencies that can be gained, further efficiencies that can be gained through newer technologies, and that there's a lot of dynamism in the R&D market. Smaller players who are having great ideas, but because they're small, it's very difficult for them to be able to reach out to the market. So what we have done is that we have created an international water hub in Nanjing. 4 or 5 years ago, we started investing and building a water hub in Nanjing, about 34,000 square meter GFA. We got it operational last year. And the idea is quite similar to what Peter is trying to do in the water exchange, whereby we tell some of these new technology companies and say that, look, if you have a solution, a novel solution, and you think that you can solve a pain point for any of these industrial sort of customers, come to us. We can work together. We can then use our assets, industrial wastewater assets in China, and then test it out and see whether it works. And if it works, then we can help you implement it in our plant, and that's a way for you to commercialize your technology. So we had been conducting 3 sort of editions of this swing. We call it swing, Sembcorp Water Innovation at Nanjing, whereby we screen about 300 unique niche technology companies who are interested to work with us. And out of that process, we have 6-7 companies that we are working together now. So I think this is our way to try to bring value to a sector that is currently unserved, because these are small chemical companies, and for them, wastewater treatment plant is like a back office support. The glory is in manufacturing, whether you're in the chemical side or in the pharmaceutical side. So it tends to be a little bit neglected, but at the same time, that creates opportunities whereby innovation to help them reduce costs, both serving them and also helping them to improve on their cost of operations. I think this is one area that we hope to contribute towards higher sustainability for this sector, and also reducing their environmental footprint.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that, CG. I think you very well highlighted some of the great initiatives in the technology space in the water sector. I was wondering whether you reckon we are perhaps at a tipping point where the all-pervasive technology will change the way we run utilities, both not only for manufacturing industrial sector, but also for the domestic residential sector, you think?
Yeah, I think, we besides, water business, we are also in energy business. So, we have 3,000 plus megawatts of renewables now, out out of a total of 13,000 megawatts. And I think if you look at the energy sector, I think the drive towards sustainability and the challenge to bring down carbon footprint, I think has allowed many of these energy companies to look at innovation and also adopt some of the innovation. And over time, right, I think you see a tipping point because if everybody sees the potential, more and more R&D investments is made into it. If you look at the solar PV, for example, I think 20 years ago, the Chinese government put investment, but today you see that the Chinese providing 70-80% of the solar modules at a very competitive price. So I think we're beginning to see greater awareness among even the smaller players in the manufacturing side to continue to see whether they can bring down the cost of operations, but I think more importantly to be able to treat their waste better and also to be in a stricter environmental compliance because as I mentioned earlier, the manufacturing landscape is changing. The waste streams coming out are a little bit more difficult. The environmental regulations are tightening, enforcements are also tightening, and they have no choice but to make sure that they comply. And that is also one of the drivers. They are a lot more open. But again, I think Patrick talked about coming up with cost-effective innovation. I think if you are not having the technology or innovation that can still help them save costs, it will be more difficult. But I think today we are at the tip whereby we believe there are technologies out there. We just need to help them, get into the commercial sector and commercializing them.
Perfect. No, agree. Thanks, CJ. So I think that brings us to the end of part one of our discussion. And in the next 30 minutes, based on what I've heard and what the questions we are seeing from our audience, perhaps we can touch upon three big themes, if I may. The first is climate change and utility resilience, which came across in all the speeches. And of course, there are a number of questions on that as well. The second theme is collaboration and convergence, where energy nexus with water, we can touch upon that a little bit. And finally, the third theme on technological innovation and adoption, how we can help utilities from developing nations benefit from the technological innovation. So if you can touch on those big three themes, that would be great. So if you can start with the climate change and utility resilience theme, and I'll probably invite Peter and Jennifer to make a comment on that, on how are utilities gearing up to be more resilient, particularly with the emerging challenges such as climate change, rising sea levels. So perhaps if Peter can go first from PUB and then Jennifer from the World Bank.
Okay, thank you. I tried to explain earlier that to be resilient is not the same as being sustainable. Resilience means being hard to knock down and also being able to recover quickly should you get knocked. I suppose this is the same idea as rolling with the punches in boxing. So it's about shocks, about hardening ourselves against these shocks, and about recovery should the shock come for real. So in this respect, my advice is that you have to do a couple of things. And the first is to know what are the shocks that may be coming your way, and then prepare as best as you can to meet them. This is essentially an exercise in risk management and then in contingency planning. We have to know what can kill us. And some obvious examples are terrorism and cyber attacks. I hope that everyone listening in has a plan against terrorism, because this is an old enemy since 9/11, but it continues to be real and is no less threatening. As for cyber attacks, recent incidents like the SolarWinds hack, the Colonial Pipeline, and the JBS meat plants attack tell us that some of us are not taking this threat seriously enough. In PUB, we are quite clear that a cyber attack can be life-threatening, and we harden ourselves as best as we can. Of course, the existential threat that we all face now is climate change. For us in Singapore, we have no choice but to be totally clear-eyed about the threat of climate change. You see, Singapore is pancake flat. Most of it is less than 5 meters above mean sea level. So it wouldn't take a lot for the sea to rise in order to turn us into a new Atlantis. As far as climate change is concerned, we have to start taking action now, and keeping our fingers crossed and hoping for the best will not be a good method for us in Singapore in terms of climate change. Of course, we cannot plan or be prepared for every calamity. There will always be black swans that we don't even know about. But like in sports, the more you practice a set play in training, the better you will be at free play in a real match. So step number 1, know what will kill you, and then prepare as best as you can to avoid premature death. Step 2 is to always know what will keep you alive. This is the other side of the coin. What are the essentials that you will need to keep operations going? And then make sure you never run out. In my case, I know that as long as I have trained manpower available and a steady supply of material, I can keep my operations going indefinitely. And this is the challenge that I'm facing today, even now, as I speak to you, because we are still in the middle of a global pandemic. Should the men and women of PUB get stricken by this virus, then PUB is done for. At the same time, should PUB run out of supplies and material, because we import everything and borders become closed, then we are also done for. Therefore, ever since this pandemic started more than a year ago, I have spent most of my waking hours making sure that my crew is safe and that my supply chain remains intact. So in summary, I just want to say 2 things. These are the 2 things to becoming resilient. A, know what will kill you and prepare the best that you can when these things do come to pass. And B, know what you need to keep going and make sure you never run out. Thank you, Gerard.
Wonderful, Peter. Jennifer, how are you helping utilities from emerging markets, developing countries to be more resilient?
Great question. And this is just a fascinating conversation. And I guess I'm just sorry we're not all together, because I'd love to follow up with everyone to learn more about what you're doing. But I can't agree more with Peter in terms of, we all need to really think about resilience as being able to withstand exogenous shocks. And in the with the backdrop of climate change, we know how big the challenges are for utilities. But I also think that, as Peter says, we need to remember what COVID, over a year now, utilities have had to be resilient to COVID, and especially the utilities that we work with, which already have a hard enough time to collect their operating revenue. And so when the COVID hit for them and all the government mandated, stay-at-home policies, prohibiting shutoffs, not being able to recover the costs, border closures. Peter, you mentioned the border closures, right? The supply chain disruptions. In Africa, if you think a lot of the distribution of something like chlorine, comes to South Africa when the borders closed. And so we were really, a year ago, when the pandemic, we were really, really concerned. We saw many of the utilities we support taking financial hits, 40, 50%. And we didn't think they were going to recover. We really didn't. But we see, and I don't know, it's a passion of the water sector. Everyone comes together. And so these utilities keep on going, like you say, Peter, so essential, that service. But you do need to prepare for the future. And they kept on going because they also brought in innovation. They brought in all the digital technologies. They learned from all the innovations that many of you are doing. Off-grid solutions, decentralized solutions are very, very important. So I think what's important, what we're doing is, as I mentioned, this Utility of the Future program, is to try to define what it means, resilience. And what do you do? I mean, we have all kinds of utilities at different levels. What's very, very important for us, and I was listening to all of you, how do you define, what are the indicators that you want to measure if a utility is performing well or not? Is it about fixing the leaks and improving the efficiency, the operational financial efficiency? Is it making sure that it's covering all the unserved, that it covers everybody in the service area? Is it about cybersecurity? Is it about water security? So there are so many challenges here. And I think that's something very, very important. We could all come together and think about what are the key indicators. that helps us. And that allows us also to organize the programs like ADBS as well, the technical assistance, the financing, to channel and support utilities in developing countries to be able to emerge, to build that resiliency. And we invite everyone to contribute to this, because I think that's what this whole session is about, is on that innovation side and the resilience. And maybe, Peter, not everyone has the same cybersecurity threat in some of the countries that we're working in, and they just have the basic resilience of just needing to make sure that the water is flowing through the pipes. So I think those different levels of resilience are very important, and that exchange across countries and utilities is very important. And then we just stop one final note. I just spoke last week at the American Water Works Association, has their annual event. Of course, it was virtual as well. And they did a survey of all the utilities in the United States. And it was very interesting to see that they had the most positive survey that they've had in years, that people working in the industry and the utilities are actually feeling quite positive despite all the challenges of COVID and climate change. So I think that utility, that resilience and the wanting to achieve and overcome your risks is what drives a lot of the innovation. Thank you.
Yeah. So Jennifer, thank you for that. And I think this is a good segue to collaboration, because you mentioned that probably all the agencies, entities, stakeholders may have to work together to address the resilience challenge. And if I may probably invite Alan from RSK and Steve from Jacobs to comment about how in their field of work, they see the involvement of private sector working with governments, utilities, regulators in their help to transition to becoming more future ready and perhaps to start adopting innovation. Alan?
Thank you. It is so important that we work together, that we collaborate, that business and government seek to solve problems jointly. And I say that because so often you see businesses trying to create solutions where there isn't a problem. So what we don't want are well-intended projects that are creating solutions for no problem. What we need is the granular understanding of the problem, and then cooperation and innovation and the adaptation of technology to solve those problems. So we need collaborative working that is intended to foster innovation to solve real problems. And that's where I think the program that PUB runs, the Innovation Challenge, is a great opportunity to do just that. It's looking at identifying real problems, and then with government support, fostering innovation for the solution of those real problems. So it's about looking at genuine problems, collaborative working, and innovation to solve those problems.
Yep. Steve?
Yeah, well, first, building on Alan's comments, Alan, just listening to your earlier remarks, I think that Jacobs and your firm should be doing a lot more together to team up and help solve these challenges and opportunities around the world. So I want to follow up with you on that. But look, the pandemic that we've all been challenged with, I think there's a lot of positive learnings that have come out of that. And one of them was around collaboration, innovating, and adopting innovation at record speed. When you think of what we've all gone through and how so much has been accelerated, especially on the digital front, I think it's the mindset that we got to put forward when we follow up from all of these meetings and really go after this. And I just to kind of put some examples out there. The things that we did at Jacobs over the last 12 to 14 months, especially right at the beginning, just overnight shifting our resources to mobile hospital units and healthcare operations across the globe, and retrofitting pharma sites for all the major pharmaceutical companies in the U.S. and around the world for COVID-19 vaccine and therapy manufacturing facilities. And the innovative work around distributing the vaccine, across the world are efforts that we've been participating in. And these are things we weren't doing, previously, and to think about how we could marshal resources and solve, a major problem on something that, was so significant. And of course, on the cybersecurity front, the response to the increased threats and during the pandemic and our customer transitions at home work environments, there's a lot of things that we've all been doing. So the bottom line for me is I hope to see this collaboration and innovation continue. We've all seen what we can accomplish when we work together, not as individual companies or individuals. And I encourage us to be bold, push beyond our comfort levels. And as we've learned from this crisis, that's how we're going to be future ready.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. In fact, just to add on to that about collaboration and convergence, there's a number of questions asking about how we can be more efficient in terms of energy consumption, how can we be more sustainable in terms of water distribution. And here, if I can invite Patrick to talk a little bit more about how can we have solutions which are both environmentally and economically sustainable for utilities, particularly in the emerging markets where the challenge is quite great. Patrick, what's your view on that? Sure.
Yeah. I mean, can you hear me?
Yes.
Again, I never take this for granted, so just want to make sure. I think there is a perception that technology is expensive, and it's not. It really comes down, in my view, to what the performance outcomes are, and working with utilities on making sure we understand what that impact can be. As anybody in the water utility space knows, energy consumption is arguably number one on the list in terms of areas of opportunity to improve, and especially on the wastewater side. So whether it be in submersible wastewater pumps, whether it be in the treatment plant itself in terms of what the view of the load coming in upstream is going to be, whether it be stormwater overflows. I mean, the challenges are endless here. But as I said in my opening comments, I mean, the technologies exist already to solve these problems. There's nobody out there looking for new stuff. I mean, they already exist. So it's a matter of how do we work with the utilities, whether it be through pilots or other means, whether it be through performance-based contracts to where we put skin in the game as a technology provider to, again, bring the solution. I could go on and on here for quite some time about individual technologies, and the other companies on the phone here that provide these as well. We all have them. So what can we do? Peter, you're in a tough spot every day. You and I have spoken about this before. You cannot afford the downside risk of something not actually working, not actually performing, and doing it in an affordable manner. But I'm not going to do the Xylem commercial here. Okay, I mean,
Yeah. Patrick, if I can just jump in,
yeah, sure.
I think from our experience, a lot of this technology pays for itself in the long run.
Yes.
But of course, that's assuming you solve the problem with the tariffs. I mean, you have to get a proper return. So I suppose in places where you don't get a proper return, first you don't have the resources to invest in technology, and then for it to pay off, you'll never pay off because you don't make money on.
No, and I think Peter, to me the key. I know we're kind of going off offline here. I think that it all comes down to partnerships, and so at the end of the day, you're right. There is the economic motive, but there's also the social motive, and that is at the end of the day, what you are dealing with in Singapore is existential. in terms of, when I heard you talk about your opening comments, the things that you wake up in the morning worrying about, I don't think the average person in a for-profit company are thinking about that. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. And so the more that we are able to understand kind of what you have to deal with when you wake up in the morning and how that drives how we partner with you on the private side versus the public side, is that to me is a big deal.
Indeed. In fact, cost recovery tariff, I could see Jennifer smiling when it was mentioned. So clearly, economic sustainability is also critical for utilities if they have to provide water for each and every citizen in the country. There are a lot of adjacencies perhaps between power sector and water sector, and power sector has adopted technology quite extensively to curtail losses, improve efficiency, operation efficiency, as well as implementation efficiency. If I can invite Semcop, CG, and perhaps HP Nanda from DuPont to comment a little bit upon how they see leverage of technology coming from energy sector into water sector in the coming years. CG?
Sorry, just want to unmute myself. Yeah. No, I think energy consumption in the water treatment, whether it's the clean water production, desalination, or wastewater treatment, I think is the biggest component, other than, of course, chemicals. And yes, I think there's already a lot of equipment that are very efficient, very efficient pumps, motors, so you can put them together. And I think there's probably not much more that you can push. Of course, there's always going to be room for that. But I think it's trying to incorporate renewable energy, whether it's solar or whether it's, renewable biogas that can recover from a wastewater treatment plant to feed it into the water treatment plant. That's one way to overcome that. And as I said, I think if there's enough research and development going into this area, there will be tangible outcomes, over time, as we have seen in the solar PV space. So I think my view is that it is I'm quite optimistic, because if you look at the solar space, renewable energy, depending on where you are for solar, I think it can range from less than 2 cents, in Saudi and in some parts of Middle East, to 6-7 cents, in less well endowed sort of a region. So it's already competitive compared to, say, 10 years ago, when we talk about renewable energy, whether it's wind or solar, is still quite expensive.
Yep. HP, what do you see as technology innovation disruptions in the sector?
Thank you. When you talk about desalination, 50% of the operating cost of desalination is energy. And this is probably 80% less today we consume energy than what used to do in reverse osmosis 20 years ago. And still probably we should never stop, keep pushing the technology to further reduce it, because that is the single biggest operating cost. And I think CG made a great comment about the source of energy, renewables, definitely, and there are multiple other technologies coming up. I think there is another way of solving also energy. Transporting water is a lot of energy. So the decentralized water systems, whether it is decentralized water systems for in-process water or for wastewater, where we'll be able to really minimize the transportation of water, is also another way. In different geographies and in different industries, you can figure out how to reduce the consumption of energy.
Do you mind if I just jump in here?
Sure, please, Jennifer.
Just very quickly. I mean, these are great solutions, but I also think one thing that's very, very important is also focusing on reducing leakages. Yes. And so I think that's another way, one of the best ways and quickest wins in terms of energy efficiency is really, and of course it's not in PUB. Peter doesn't have to worry about that. But in so many of the client countries we work in, we're wasting 50% of the water that's being produced.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to put that there. Thank you.
No, thank you, Jennifer.
Actually, I worry about it every day, and we work very closely with Patrick on bringing our leakages even more down.
And Peter, you're at the top of the league table on that. Yeah, and the fact that you're still concerned about it, I mean, that's a huge message to the rest of the world.
And this is the point, Patrick, I wanted to touch upon on how do utilities from emerging market benefit from the experience of successful utilities, let's say like PUB. And this is where probably I think we need to see how the technology transfer, that leapfrogging that we talked about earlier, could be effective. And the other angle that we probably have not touched upon today is regulatory policy and government commitment to make things happen for the utility, isn't it? And probably if I can just start with Nita and Jennifer to highlight a bit more about how the regulatory tools, policy initiatives in countries will help create a more sustainable utility, and then others can chime in as well. Nita?
Thank you, Sharad. I must say I've been so enjoying this conversation and the quirks that Patrick and Peter had earlier about technology. And if I may, I'll start with this example. I have maybe 7-8 years ago, we did a survey of how many SCADA systems were still operational in our investment in some of these countries are quite massive in wastewater treatment plants, water treatment plants. And there was a policy. There were so many defunct SCADA systems, and they said the government made a policy, if you putting these plants, you must have a full-fledged SCADA and you must have X, Y, and Z technology. So I go back to my point of knowing, I like what Peter said, knowing what kills you, knowing what you have, knowing what you can have if the shocks and stresses hit you, or how you can sustain or how you can stay alive and bounce back is extremely important for policymakers. Just because there's some shiny, blingy thing out there and that everybody else, PUB is having this shiny technology, let us also have it, doesn't work. And we haven't seen it work in, underserved areas in Asia. So really knowing your capacity, when you have underserved areas, again, as I said, 50% of Asia is rural, capacity of really keeping that technology going. There were all these licenses of the providers that were defunct that the governments couldn't sustain. So really, again, where ADB, we come in is to make sure they are need-based, make sure that the enabling environment is the right enabling environment, make sure that the shocks and pandemics will be the right shocks and pandemics for that appropriate government or utility, and make sure that the capacities are there to really bounce back. So, again, bringing private sector, bringing technology, bringing innovations must be looked at it with this. Money is not important. You have bankers, you have MDBs, World Bank, ADB, everybody wanting to bring more money to do more. It's really not the problem with money. It's the capacity, it's the knowledge to know what kills you, as Peter said. It's the knowledge to know what will hit you. It's the knowledge to say what you can sustain. And this SCADA system is my perfect example. I always give this. Hundreds of these systems, SCADA, all over. India, who is our biggest client, we have $18 billion of investment there, and the government themselves are realizing that. So these policies have to be tackled with that right knowledge that these are the shocks that will kill us. These are the tariff setting. We can't just raise tariffs. I mean, the governments like Ireland that are not charging directly, and they are charging through taxes and transfers, and that's fine. We can't force. MDBs like us can't say, oh, you must charge tariffs and you must have X, Y, and Z. If they choose to provide sustainable transfers, sustainable taxes, and fork out the taxes to ring fence it, let them. Let governments do what suits them, what kills them, and make them understand their own pain points, make them understand their own shocks and stresses. I stop here.
Hey, Nita, this is Patrick real quick. Peter, I don't want to put you on the spot here, but I guess I'll do it. I'm not gonna ask you a question, but again, I go back to the fact that when you wake up in the morning and you're thinking about the top 1, 2, 3 things that you have to worry, about, I go back to all of us in this session, and that is, what problem are we solving for? And so, we can throw technology at things, we can throw money at things, but again, the reason I respect you so much and your entire team and all the utility leaders around the world is it's hard, but simple. Okay. I mean, you've got clarity as to what you've got to make sure happens every day. And I just wish the rest of us would be more of a part of that conversation than trying to throw things at you. And I'll go on mute.
Thank you. He summarized it very well for me. Absolutely couldn't agree more. Do what you need. What are you doing for resilience? Is it for resilience? Is it for sustainability? Is it for making public participation better in water management? Is it making for politicians look better? Give that clarity. Politicians would always want to look better, huh? But still, have that clarity. What are you solving it for? What is the technology for? Can you sustain it? And the rest is easy.
Yeah.
I mean,
No,
Shara,
it's
that
not
question,
about.
I don't know. Oh, sorry.
Sorry.
Go ahead, Peter.
It's not about technology. I think every water utility in the world solves life. What we do gives life. So I think that's the biggest thing, right? Of course, what I do
You got that right.
advances. Of course, what I do in Singapore advances the prosperity and the success of Singapore. So it's important for Singapore that we have enough water. So it's for the country as well.
Yes.
And it's not about technology. Whatever works, we will do. Right? We have to be clear about this.
Yeah. Now get clear on the problem, and I think there are enough solutions, isn't it?
So, Sharad, I don't know if we have time or not.
Yeah, please
Just
go
answer
ahead.
Quickly, the question. We have a sister initiative. We can look at the utilities of the future and focus on utilities, but it's a very good question. How do you fix the policy? So we have an initiative called the PIR, which is Policies, Institutions, and Regulation. And what we're finding is really effective is being able to give evidence, to go to countries, look at their public expenditure reviews, look at how they're spending money or not spending money in the water sector, look who doesn't have water, where the service coverage gaps are. And I think that's what's very, very powerful to be able to change the policies. And the important thing is that when you have utilities that can be accountable upwards and downwards, you have a tariff in place. That's what we've been talking a lot about. But Alan mentioned valuing water. And valuing water is incredibly important. And water is also a human right. In a way, that's important. We all believe in it. But it also gets in your way in terms of not being able to have tariffs when you know that you can design tariff systems with social tariffs. And I think that's a really important conversation we all need to have. And nobody has that in the energy sector. You keep on saying, why can energy crowd in the private sector? And that is one of the big issues I think we can all work together, is making sure that you have tariffs and social tariffs that do allow the crowding in the private investment, much needed innovation in a sound regulatory and policy environment. Thanks.
Lovely. Thank you. I think we managed to kind of touch upon most of the questions that were raised by the audience. And of course, these questions will be available to all the panel members separately as well. So should there be any interaction required going forward, we can encourage that as well. Now, as we come to the close of the session, I would request each of the panel members to paint their vision of the water sector and what technology trends you see dominating in the coming 3 to 5 years. And perhaps this session is planted because we want to pick up the theme for the next Singapore International Water Week next year. So we'll hear this very closely in terms of where do you see sector going and what are the things that are dominating. So shall we start perhaps with Alan, because Alan, you are up all night.
Thank you so much. So Peter said to us in his talk, you must know what will kill you and be prepared. So we know what will kill us. The dinosaurs probably didn't know, but massive climate change is potentially what will result in the mass extinction of people. So we have to do something about it. We can do something about it. And if I think back, it was just 2 years ago that Greta Thunberg was talking to the United Nations and saying how world leaders were uttering empty words, stealing her childhood, ruining her life and that of her generation. So what I find so pleasing from today is that business leaders and government, the Singapore government at the very least, is listening. I don't see empty words. I see a real commitment to action, and there is action taking place. The belief in the circular economy and all the commitment towards that is going to make a difference. So I think perhaps where the water industry will focus over the coming years will be around reduction of energy consumption and reduction of waste, and the focus on the circular economy.
Thank you.
That's how I see it.
Thank you, Alan. Steve?
Sharon, yeah, I'm sorry. I thought you were calling on someone else.
No,
Look,
sorry,
I think we've talked about what the vision is that, we want to achieve the sustainable goals of the future that are a threat with climate change and some of the other threats that we've talked about. And so, water utilities are the anchor institutions in every community, and therefore they're connected to industry, infrastructure that really touch everything that we all do as human beings. And so, what we need to do is make sure we have an integrated approach, that it's inclusive, it results in equity, and it utilizes the best technology, obviously digital capability, and achieve the net carbon zero world that we need to have over the next 10 to 20 years.
Perfect. Jennifer, what's your take?
Well, this aligns very much with the World Bank. We've just launched our new strategy, which is about GRID. It's called Green, Resilient, Inclusive Development across all sectors. I can't agree more that we have to work across all sectors. Unfortunately, I still think we need to make the case in the water sector. Health and social is just doesn't do it, unfortunately. Environment. So I think the economic case that Stephen just mentioned, linking it to jobs and industry, the importance in investing in it. And Alan, fully agree with you. The drivers will be climate change, not just the adaptation side, but mitigation. How do we position the water and wastewater sector into that space with energy efficiency and wastewater reuse? Thank you.
Perfect. Patrick?
Yeah, to me, it's, anybody who's in this session right now obviously cares deeply about water. We're all leaders. We have the ability to allocate resources, our energy along the way. And the challenge I would give to all of us is, what do we want our legacy to be? I'll leave it at that.
Indeed. Thank you for that. Very inspiring. HP, what is your take on vision for the sector?
So I think we have been discussing, though the challenge is global, the solution has to be local. And Singapore as a country and a PUB as a utility, they are like role models in the world. But I think if you have to solve this water scarcity, every stakeholder has to pay and contribute their part, whether it is ordinary citizens who are the demand generators for water, to the users, industries, and of course utilities, public policy, World Bank, ADB, industry, businesses. I think if we all can contribute our part, and I'm sure we can create a better world for all of us.
Lovely. Strong collaboration is the need of the hour, isn't it? Yeah. Neeta, what's your take?
That led me right on what I was also thinking, Sharad. I think we have a long way to go, and missing this opportunity that COVID-19 has thrown us at the water sector, really doing it more resilient, really looking at food, energy, water nexus. We talk about it, but we don't really do it well. But again, we can only walk a few miles if we walk alone. So really trying to see where the right partners can leverage and pull their weight and do it together. So we really use this opportunity to come up with a more resilient and water secure future is what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you, Nita. CG.
I think, when we talk about water, sometimes we talk about, sort of potable water, but industrial water is only 10% more or less of the total water sector. But I think it's very important to make sure that they continue to be able to optimize, find the right technology, right innovation, in a cost-effective way to increase their sustainability and also reduce their environmental footprint. So we had contributed towards the centralized utilities model 25 years ago. With insights, we believe that we can contribute to the next level by innovation and collaboration with the wider technology companies and all the other stakeholders to bring this innovation and technologies to this underserved sector, which I call it the decentralized sector. These are small, medium-sized factories, manufacturing plants. They have got the wastewater treatment plants. I think the large guys, the very big players in the manufacturing sector, I think they are well equipped with the right people to take care of it. But I think the smaller guys, I think needs help. I think we can all collaborate together. And I hope that through our digital platform called Virtual Brain and our Swing platform, we can then bring everybody together to bring these solutions to this particular sector.
Wonderful. And finally, Peter, your vision.
Well, I think there is no argument that we are now living in a new world, right? We are now trying to emerge from a once-in-a-100-year pandemic. And we are also facing up to a once-in-an-epoch shift in the Earth's climate. So I think it will be appropriate for me to repeat what I said earlier, and it is this, that even in our very boring and staid world of water utilities, there is so many more changes that we will have to make and so many innovations that we will need to adopt and to implement if we ever want to continue doing the work that we do, providing the bits of the world that we serve with life-giving water far, far into the future. I think everyone here can agree with that. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. All right. So please join me all in thanking these esteemed panel members for the insightful discussion and sharing their vision for the future of the water sector. With the passion and experience that the stakeholders as represented on the panel today, as well as the quality of questions from over 2,000 industry enthusiasts who joined us virtually today, I believe we will be able to address the water sector challenge. Innovation and collaboration are the pivots that can help us crystallize our vision of meeting the UN Sustainable Development Goal for water and sanitation sector within the current decade. Thank you all and wish you a very successful rest of the Singapore International Water Week. Stay safe. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I will hand it.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
I'll hand it over to Ryan now. Thank you all.
Thank you to our 8 speakers and our moderator for an enlightening session. This wraps up the first session at SIWW 2021 Spotlight. We will resume with the second plenary, Riding the Wave, Ensuring Security Against Climate Uncertainties at 3 p.m. Singapore time. In the meantime, we invite you to visit the Water Expo and have a chat with our exhibitors. Do also view the posters that are on display at our e-poster gallery. See you later.